life after death.
We fear God, not men.
Sometimes you just gotta praise even when you feel like there's no way out.
It will be the only Bible someone will ever read.
Let's make heaven crowded.
Catching all souls.
Welcome back to The Fisherman, guys. Yes, as you can see, we got a lot of guests, but welcome to The Fisherman, where we dive deep into biblical truths and explore how they apply to our life today. I'm your host, Melvin.
I'm Nisa.
All right, and today we're exploring today's truths and today's topics, speaking about masculinity and femininity. How do you say that word?
Femininity.
Femininity?
Femininity. Do want to introduce our guests before we get right into it. So I'll go first with the ladies. So we have
Hi, I'm Evelyn.
I'm Andrea. I'm Raquel.
And I'm going to introduce the guys a little bit more. I'm going to say we brought together a powerhouse panel to help us dig into this topic. Joining us today, we have three men, all with unique perspectives and a passion for God's word. Let's meet our guests. First, we have
in the
Oh, we got Moises right here.
Okay.
My name is Edgar.
I'm Abraham.
Welcome, everyone. Let's jump right in.
All right, so we wanted to obviously bring the topic to you guys. The topic we are talking about today, and what I would like for you guys to do, is describe biblical femininity. So we're gonna start with Andrea. What does that look like to you? Can you describe biblical femininity for us?
When I think about femininity, it's more like the way you carry yourself out as a woman.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to start about talking about what masculine is. So Edgar, what do you think masculinity is? Can you describe it biblically?
Well, as in biblical speaking, in Ephesians 5, it tells you specifically how to be a husband to your wife, how to provide, how to, look out after her and lead her. But I think also being fruitful, it's one of the most important things you could be as a husband.
So what about femininity?
So I started thinking about it, and it's more like a nurturing aspect. So when we think of a woman, someone who is nurturing, someone kind, so I think women are more in tune with their emotions. But I think it's like more feelings. Like we understand our feelings more, our emotions. We have a more nurturing kind of nature versus masculinity, which is like a strong,
logical. Okay.
All right, that's good. That's good. Good answers, you guys. Now I have a question for Moy. Do you think that these definitions that both Andrea and Edgar gave out, do you think that they still apply to today's world, or you think they've changed, we should change in our own roles as men and women, or do you think we should stay the same as the Bible describes it?
I mean, like today's world, it's like more different because like we don't, like the guy doesn't really want to like lead. It's mostly like we have a lot of women that want to step up and work, and they want to provide, and the men are just like we don't really want to work. We'd rather just be at home, be lazy, So yeah, like we don't really like live on the word. Like we could try, but it's, yeah, like I just see like a lot of women stepping out. Like when I'm driving on the road, I see a lot of girl drivers, and I'm like, like wow.
He's a trucker,
like,
guy.
So
yeah, he's talking about women driving big 18-wheelers.
That's not easy, bro. Like it's like when I see a girl, like that's a lot of. I get scared just driving it, bro. But like
Wait, what do you mean you get scared because of women driving, or
no? Just like I mean, it's hard to control like one of those big cars, vehicles. So I mean, to them, like if I'm feeling like all this emotion, I know they feel it twice as much, like, so it's just, I don't know.
But do you think that we should take up the role as biblical, how the Bible says it? Should we go into our roles as it's biblically described, or should we just like,
stay with the culture?
Like stay with how
help
the world
women advance more in that aspect, or you should still stay how it was before?
It's a good question. Like, I don't think I have an answer. That's just for that one. I know I do want to. We want to live on the word, but it's just sometimes we want to go against it. You know, women do want to have something, like they want to like
Have the
work, like
role.
they don't want to just be at home.
Or what do you,
You know?
what do you ladies think about that? Like how he said, a lot of ladies want to have that power move, that I want to be the boss, you know? Yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna say something. First off, I feel like I should probably give explaining to my reasoning. Because I'm actually studying to be an engineer myself, so I kind of understand the aspect of like wanting to like advance as a woman. But biblically speaking, I mean, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Biblically speaking, what's in the Bible, that's always what we should follow first. Like the Bible gives me a role as a woman, that I'm supposed to be a Proverbs 31 woman, that I'm supposed to be supporting my husband and he's supposed to be leading me. That much, like, it should never change. Like, yes, us wives, I'm not a wife, but as a wife, as a woman, yes, I believe in being submissive to your partner, to your husband, and like I think that much shouldn't change. But if we're speaking about like in the times today, I feel like women, I feel like you can do both in a sense.
What do you mean by both? Like, explain a little bit.
Do both. Like, you can not necessarily that a woman necessarily like leads like their home or anything, but I think that she can help out like financially. Like, I do believe like she can. Like, I mean, and especially in today's economy, like like it's kind of more necessary. Like, you do see like the necessity of a woman needing to help financially, because it's hard for just a man to do it now. So personally, that would be my reasoning behind why I want to get a good paying job. But in terms of like, if I were given the option, would you rather like work, or would you rather like get
Stay
the
home.
housewife? The Bible, like, I feel like it leans more into me being a housewife. Like, I feel like that's an easier way to be submissive.
So with your job, like you said, you're an engineer, you're going to make big bucks. Let's just say, God willing, you meet your future husband who works at Burger King. With you, I don't know how you would take it, but let's just say in yourself, I'm making most of the money, I'm paying most of the bills. Would you feel somewhat entitled or somewhat like taking leadership over him now? Like, you know what, I'm paying most of what we are staying in our house, I'm paying for the cars and insurances. Or would you actually be like, husband, this is all my money I'm making, you take care of all the finances, you take care of the bills?
No, honestly, I feel like I would rather the man take care of the bills, because I mean, I think all girls are the same. We like to shop or whatever. Like, it's like, oh, this is cute. Like, oh, and keep in mind, I'm not big on shopping anything, but like, if I find something I like
You want it.
I want it, yeah. Like, even if it's just candy.
Yeah, me.
But no, I'd rather somebody take care of my finances for me. Like, I mean, the way that I'm being raised right now, I don't have a job, so obviously, like, whatever money I have, it comes from my dad, and I feel like I like it that way, because it teaches me to manage my money. Like, here's this much, like, and then manage it over a certain amount of time. I feel like I like that better, because then it's just like, oh, I'm not gonna impulsively spend everything. Like, I'd rather somebody like. And obviously, a man being more logical, me being more emotional, I feel like it's easier. Like, okay, yeah, like, you take care of the most important stuff. And then, like, si sobra, if anything is left over, like, okay, like, then.
That's what I tell Nisa when she tells me something about a purse or clothes. If you still feel about it for 2 weeks, if you still have that same emotion, then we end up buying it and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good.
And then no, it usually goes away. I forget about it.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, just culturally speaking, in the times of the Bible, women were actually the ones who were, how would you say, managing the money. Obviously, women weren't always allowed to work back then. I think some women did work, but they were in charge of their finances, their husband's finances and their own finances. They were the ones making the plans. They were the ones setting apart money. This goes here, this goes there, and the husband was the one making the money. So I think, I mean, it's a culture thing, and I think I kind of more so, how would you say, lean on the 50-50, like, not like money wise, but just in general. Like, I pull my weight and you pull yours, and we obviously pull our weight in different ways. Like, if I were to have my wife and she were to have kids, obviously, like, I would like her to stay home, and I would want to be able to make enough money to support both of us and our kids. But if it's just something that's not possible, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna force her to stay home, or
But don't you think it is possible? Like, for example, we live in America. If we really wanted to make it happen, I think we could not have 2 cars, not go on trips, not spend on clothes, and the man could really just work one job, and the wife would stay at home and do like what you said, like you could be a stay-at-home wife. I'll take care of you, provide for you, or would you rather take the pay 2 cars, we'll go out on trips, we'll go do this and this, and you want to spend 50-50?
I think even having one car is very expensive. Taking care of one place is expensive, and obviously it's possible, but it's not always easy. And obviously we're not saying that things have to be easy, but I don't think it's as easy as it sounds. And I think, for example, my mom, she has been a single mom for most of our lives. And she has been, even when my dad was with us, she was the breadwinner. Even though my dad made more money than she did, she was the one who was paying the rent. She was the one that was paying the cars and stuff. And obviously that's not okay. That's not how it should have gone.
Just kidding.
That's not how it should have gone. But my
Dad
mom
starts watching this. Or like on the camera.
But one thing that I really do admire, like what you guys were talking about, was women always do step up. Women have shown to always be stepping up.
We're the real ones.
Like guys,
you're not even working
not
right
in my
now.
Marriage, though. In my marriage, she's with it.
And yeah, like for example, you don't hear a lot of single dads, and obviously there's single dads out there, but it's always usually a single mom. And I just think that kind of points to the fact that women do always stand up. Well, not always, obviously, there's some women who don't. But just going back on the thing, it's definitely possible for, to advance, especially in America where things are not easier, but they're more attainable.
It's capable.
Yeah, but it's different for different people in different cases.
Yeah. Or what were you about to say, Andrea?
What about you, Andrea?
I was gonna say, I think leading a relationship is so much more than just financials. Because if you think about it spiritually, where is your husband teaching you? When are you guys initiating prayer? When is your husband teaching you, reaching out, going to other churches, uniting your family? When you have kids, who's teaching your kids? Who's like putting that stuff? I think it's beyond financials because I think it's a beautiful thing when someone can be a stay-at-home mom. It's beautiful. I grew up with my stepmom and my mom both at home, nurturing me, taking care of me. And I feel like a lot of people right now are like, well, stay-at-home moms, like we're empowered women. And yes, you can work for your family because we do have that nurturing side where it's like, you know what, financially, we are not in a place where I can stay home. And they have to make that sacrifice to work. Because like I work at a daycare and a lot of the moms work, all of them. Because like just daycare alone is like $1,000 a month per child. So, and that's expensive. And if you get government assistance, that's great. But they only give you that if you work a certain amount of hours. Yeah. So I feel like leading.
And the government really promotes single moms. Like the government, there's like I don't know what the correct term is, but it's like a bar where if you meet, like how you're saying, the correct standards, if you're a single house income, if you work this amount of hours, if you have this amount of kids, we'll give you this much money. And a lot of women nowadays want to be like, all right, I'm this, and this, and leave their baby daddies and all this and this.
Yeah, but I just think like beyond financials, like when a woman has to step up, because I think in Proverbs it does say a woman will make clothes and have their own like side hustle. Like it's not all about just like being at home and like, because at one point when a mother sees their child is in need of clothes, when they need money, and I mean it sucks to beg. Like I've been in that poverty state where my dad or my dad, he worked really hard but he couldn't provide because he wasn't making enough for like 3 children. So we lived in a garage. It was terrible, but he still let us. Like he still, and like my mom tried too because they separated. So I think leading is beyond just financials because I feel like your partner could work, but as long as, again, like Evie said, like you're submissive to your husband, to the person that's going to be the father of your foundation of your family, like the head. That's what's important. But I feel like financially wise, like women can have their careers because at the end of the day, when you get a job, you want to get a good paying amount to nurture and support your family. And I feel like that's what a woman's role is, supporting their husbands, supporting their families.
I think it's a little hard nowadays for, like how you said, if both man and wife, if the husband and wife have a job and they have kids, it's like where are we gonna leave our kids? And it's just like a tough position where am I gonna pay for daycare? Am I gonna leave him with grandma and grandpa? Kids with like, and it's scary because if you're a dad and a mom, you're not gonna leave your kids with just anyone, and that's why it's so tough nowadays for a mom just to stay home and take care of your kids because bills gotta be paid and all this stuff's gotta be done. But transitioning into that, I'm gonna ask
Abraham, do you think the church back then did a good job of teaching these roles into a traditional, biblical man, into a masculine man?
What do you mean back then?
Back then,
How back?
I would say, I want to say Jesus' time. Like back then, do you think it was the church's job, or you think they actually did teach the boys turn into a man to follow their teacher, to learn his ways? And if they did they lose that throughout time? Did the church nowadays lose that?
Well, I think it's different. Back then, both culture and religion were intertwined. People lived out their culture through their religion. But back then, even though the Bible is considered to be one of the first places or part of a religion that would extend certain freedoms, certain freedoms to women that women in other culture didn't have, the Bible was the first to, give women certain freedoms and certain freedoms, right? But back then, I think it was very like headship, like whatever the guy said went and the woman would follow, and that culture was derived from the religion. As of nowadays, it's different. Our culture isn't religiously driven, right? Everyone has their own opinions, everyone has their own way of living. So, and I think we do need to go back to our religion affecting the way that we live, our relationship with God affecting the way that our lives are lived.
You think that's lacking now, though? You think the church nowadays are not even teaching on men how to be men?
No, yeah, definitely. Because back then, it was like being a disciple was a real thing. It wasn't just something that you'd call yourself. It was, you would give up your life to follow someone that you admired, for example, right? And they were taught. Back then, becoming an adult was way earlier than it is now. Back then, it was like 14 years old, 12 years old was when men were considered adults, and when they were considered, and they would be having these responsibilities that now grown adults, people don't even know how to do. So for sure, it has been lost, and we've been like babying our generations further and further and further.
All right, what about you, Raquel? What do you think about the past femininity?
Yeah, I think that the way femininity was taught back then is a lot different than how it is now. Because it kind of goes hand in hand with like what Evelyn and Andrea were saying, because like back then, I feel like, we see in the Bible that like women were not looked down on, but like they didn't really have a voice back then. Like it would be the woman following the men, like and the main people and back in the Bible were like men, like you don't really hear a woman. I mean, you do. You see Esther, you see Ruth, like these women, they were queens and they were talked about in the Bible. But further on, for example, like in Jesus' time, like you don't really see like hear women being leaders. But I feel like now, like, yes, things are changing, and I feel like
empowerment.
Yeah, no, yeah, literally, because I feel like they are trying to keep it like the culture back then, because for what's
I think it's demonic. I think we should keep it how it was. I'm just kidding.
I feel like a lot of people, when it came to there was like a bunch of
Kamala.
Yeah, when Kamala wanted to, like, she was running for president. I feel like there was a lot of different.
Or
things, like,
Kamala.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
She has different accents for different
literally she's
groups
Nigerian,
of people.
but then she's American. And she's
We're not politics, so let's.
Not even in the secular, but even in the, in the churches, you see a lot of more like woman pastors, like who are stepping up in their churches.
Yeah.
Who are being leaders in their churches, and sometimes even these women are married, and they are pastors. They're considered the pastors of the church.
I'm sorry, but I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
really.
that's one thing we wanted to discuss about too. How you just said women pastors. Personally, I don't believe in that. You could be, because okay, we say pastora. Who here can give me the English word for pastora? Nobody. Nobody, right? It's either the pastor's wife or first lady.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't believe, I'm not saying a woman cannot speak, or give preaching or give none of that, but I certainly think that how it was in the beginning, God created man first, correct? And God gave commandment to man first, right? I don't think God gave commandment to he bypassed the man and gave commandment to the wife and said, you take care of this, you take care of that. He made man first, gave the commandment to man, and then made woman out of man's rib to be equal. You know, I see a quote, I'm gonna butcher it. It's like, you didn't make it out of the feet so you could be less than, or you didn't make it out of like the hair or the head so you could be higher than. You made it out of the ribs so you could be equal to, but different in the sense of nurture, help, push forward. So I believe a man should be in the leader pastoral role of not just in the church but also in his home, and then the woman should be by his side pushing him to be pastor, to be a leader, to be the one, as Andrea said, not just financially, but everywhere, especially spiritually, Moving forward, how do you see biblical femininity being challenged in today's culture? So how do you see it being like tested from how it was back then to how it is now?
Let's ask one of the guys. I want to see what their point of view is.
I mean, guys, do you guys want a boss wife? Like, do you guys, in a sense of like, I want to go work, I want to go pay the bills? I mean, how can I explain it?
Like a breadwinner. She wants to go make her own money. She doesn't want to depend on your finances.
Yeah, she doesn't want to depend on you. Like, do you guys want a wife that's independent?
I wanted to add something, like when you were talking about the women pastor, and like I know you're not saying about they shouldn't have like a power to speak or anything, but I actually been to a church where the pastor was, I think he was disabled, so his wife was kind of like basically taking care of the church, and they were all like going to her. She was a leader, and she basically took control of the church. And like to me, it was kind of weird because I always grew up with a pastor, and I always looked up to him. I never ever saw a woman lead, just by herself. But I always questioned, like, hey, what happened to her husband? What happened to the pastor? And he was disabled. He couldn't really move much. He couldn't really do anything. And then you were talking about if women should having a woman like take care of me, basically.
Yeah. Would you prefer a woman who's like not dependent on you, independent boss?
I mean, I would like it, I mean, obviously, well, it's just like if you like, I've met people that work, and then it's just like it's good because
yeah, sugar mama, basically.
It's not like I've never talked to one. And anyway, wait, hold on, guys, give me a second. It's just I don't know, it feels nice, like because I'm always the one that pays all the time, but like when she takes over, like let me pay. I'm like, oh, like I've never had that. Like you want to pay? Like okay, let's do that. We could. I'll allow it once, but
What about you, Edgar? Would you like a independent woman?
So I think that I'm all with the women empowerment. And,
you are with that?
No, hold on. Let me.
He's the first one on the line marching.
Get your money up. Get your.
Get your money up. Now you're funny.
Yeah, like I'm with all that to girls having their own thing, but I think it also there's a con to it because it takes you out of your role. It takes you out of who God intended you to be, and you get unnecessary stresses. You get unnecessary. Yeah, I believe that the man is supposed to take all the heat, and the woman's supposed to be the backbone in a way.
Yeah. Like
not
catch
really like
you in the sense of when you need it.
To be there for you, to be the shoulder that you need, to be empowering you on your goals. And meanwhile, the man is at the forefront. You're making sure that everything behind him is good.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So with being a pastor, I don't know about that, because it could be going good, but long term, I think it's gonna start
kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, the way we look at it, we all know that us girls are very emotional. I think, at least for me, myself, I could very much say I lead with my emotion. Like, right. I do not know how to handle myself without my emotions. But as Melvin, like, he's not like that. He thinks very logical. And obviously, that's how God created man and woman. Like, I don't know why, as God, not me. But if you were, at least me personally, if I was to be a pastora, I don't know what I would do. I really don't know what I would do. I don't think logically. I even don't think far ahead either. Like, when I'm in my emotions, I just think about that simple moment. Like, I will not know how to not think in that moment. So I don't know how that would work. Like, as us women.
I feel like that's why God created man and woman, because I think we complement each other. So, like you said, we think with our emotions, and sometimes men do not think of emotions, and they need to. Like, there's a part of us as women, we see things, and we're trying to be compassionate and kind, and because guys don't really think with sometimes a lot of times with their heart, sometimes they can be cruel, and it's just like whoa, like like we're there to be like, hey, like you know what,
But
my love,
sometimes
but like
it's better to be wise than to be more like I would say like King Solomon. He literally his first decision. I mean, his first not decision, but his first like thing he did as a king. Wife, a mother swapped her baby with another mother who was dead. Like she swapped her dead baby with another alive baby, and they presented it to the king. And then King Solomon was like, kill both of them. Like that's not thinking emotionally. You know what? It's okay. It's not. He said kill both of them, knowing that the real mom would be like, I'll do what fine. Take my baby as long as he's alive. He's alive.
But I feel like that's like what I'm getting to though is like that's why we compliment each other.
Yeah.
Because you guys, men, are the more logical thing. Like you guys
how to make a decision.
Exactly. That's how you guys lead.
Take me out to eat. Where do I want to go? I don't know.
You know where I want to go.
We say when we want to go eat.
No, yeah.
That's not true. That happened once.
Yes, but I think that's the beautiful part of God's creation of man and woman.
Yeah.
That they complement each other. You guys think logically. You guys don't think with your heart as much. But not saying you guys are heartless, but that women have a more nurturing, loving side. We like try to connect with people on an emotional level. Now, intellectually, you guys are there to step up and lead with your head, logical thinking. And when you bring those two pairings together, you create a good harmony between each other. And especially in a family household, like that's gonna be like a big role where your kids learn compassion, where your kids learn logic. That's where it combines together and it makes a beautiful pairing. And I feel like me personally, for like the job thing, I feel like sometimes there could be, let's say, a man, maybe he can't learn the way a woman, like not like some people have learning deficiencies, so he's not able to go to college to get like maybe like a big degree, or maybe he's struggling, like he has a learning deficiency or something that's preventing him from getting a really good job, but the woman can. Now I think she could get a job and he could be a stay-at-home husband, but he's still leading the house at the end of the day. I think that could be it, because financially she can come together, like the paycheck, because it's not just you give the money to a man, ella hace lo que quiere, because when you come in a relationship, you guys have to learn to work together as a teamship, like because you guys are one. You guys are building as one, not just you by yourself and I'm over here in the corner. Like, no, like you guys come to one. You guys make decisions as one. You guys are gonna be there together through crisis, together as one. So I feel like that's where like I kind of see that.
I like how a lot of us men and women are saying as one, husband and wife, but you think a God's role in a man and a woman is only for marriage or for outside of marriage?
Like a role as a.
You think a man should be only a godly masculinity in a marriage, within a marriage, or he should be masculinity like biblical wise outside of marriage as well? That makes sense. It's kind of hard.
It should be outside and within, because before you get in a relationship, you have to establish yourself with God.
Yeah.
You cannot be without God because you're going to be leading. So if you're weak on your own, if you don't have a foundation, if you don't have that bit, like that strong foundation, that firm foundation, then if you add someone else to it, what is going to happen? It's going to collapse. But I feel like you as a man should know your roles and have that established first before jumping into any relationship. I feel like that should be outside of a marriage and in when you have that, like in your singleness, in your time alone, when you grow with God, then when you establish that, I mean, it's not going to be perfect. People get in relationships and you don't know, the timing. You don't know,
Yeah.
Like you guys are young. I'm getting older, like it's like people get married get together with their partner like at 30. Some people won't have a spouse at all. So, but the important thing is having that foundation with God first by yourself. Because I think of a relationship as two cups. And if one person has a full cup and another person has an empty cup, and you keep pouring and pouring and pouring, guess what? The person that keeps getting that taken away is gonna feel like, man, it's draining. But when you both have full cups and you guys take a sip of each other's cup, it's not gonna feel draining. It's gonna feel like, okay, that she can take a sip of mine, I take a sip of hers. We're good because you guys are both full. And I feel like that's why you should establish yourself, men, masculinity. It should be established with God, and you should know your role as a man by yourself first. Just like us women need to establish ourselves with God, not because of a man that we want to be with, because I've done that and it doesn't work, and you don't build nothing. And then you come into a relationship and it crumbles. It's disastrous. But when you have, like us, we establish our relationship with God first, and then we can come into the picture. Because let's say we don't have a foundation with God, and we come into a relationship with a man, then guess what? You're going to be dragging him down a lot. Because guess what? You're relying on him. He becomes God. He becomes better in your foundation. But then what happens? Man fails. Man will not be perfect. They fall down. But who's perfect? Who's amazing? Who's, all powerful? God.
Amen.
We talked a lot about back in the day femininity and today's femininity. Like, they're both completely different. But how do you think we can take back then's femininity into today's femininity?
One way I feel like we could use it a lot is in being submissive. Cause oh my gosh, like I hear like nowadays when girls are in relationships, like they want to be leading the guy. I feel like that's one way that.
But explain submissiveness, because when you say that word, a lot of women get triggered. Some women have the wrong idea of what submissiveness is.
Submissive is listen to your husband. Whatever, even if you want something, he is logical. He knows what is best for the both of you guys. So listen to your man, not husband, if you guys are not there yet.
Yeah, like I feel like we could use that a lot nowadays because I mean, I see it more in like the secular relationships where the girl wants to be like, oh my gosh, like I want to have the guy wrapped around my finger. Like I want him to do everything that I want. And then, that is very toxic because then the girl, like, she thinks she has all the power. And then the guy's like, just, no, like that's not how it's supposed to be. Like, I feel like in a relationship, the woman has to submit to her husband because like how we've been talking about, like the guy is the head of the household. He is the head of the family. He's the one that knows how to lead logically as opposed to the woman, like how we've been saying, like we're under the guy and we're supposed to be leading our children, we're supposed to be leading them. But even then, like when we're not in there yet, like I feel like we should practice that just in general. Like,
so what does that look like then? If you're not married or if you're not in a relationship, what is biblical femininity supposed to look like?
I think if you can't submit to God, you can't submit to man. You can't submit to your husband, I mean, not just to any man. If you can't submit into the Lord, you won't submit into the man that you're supposedly one with.
Okay, that's very good.
I completely agree with that. And I like this thing that I heard on some Christian influencer on Instagram. Obviously, like us, like kind of going with what they were saying, you need to be able to be that like on your own as a woman. Like, yeah, what does that mean to do that? Like, if you're not in a relationship, first and foremost to God. And I like the way that this girl put it because she's like, God, before I get into a relationship with anybody, I want to know what it's like to have a relationship with you. I want you to be my relationship, you to be my partner, that I'm submissive to you, that and I feel like that's another thing right now that you guys are saying it. I feel like a lot of people think that when they hear submissiveness, it's as if you're like a slave or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not that you're a slave. You're a person. Obviously, if that's your partner, if you're in a relationship, like you guys go like working side by side. It's not, and it's not that a man is the head, like he's above you. And kind of like what Melvin was saying, wasn't necessarily that, God made it like from the head or from the feet, like he made it from the side by side. Not in the sense of like, cause I'm gonna be above you, like you have to listen to my every order. It's like, no, it's submissiveness in the way that, like I'm telling you this out of love, out of like compassion, and then to be able to submit to that. Not as in like, I have to listen to whatever he tells me because like it's just something that I have to do. Like, no, like when you're submissive, you're voluntarily, and I feel like that's the thing that we always forget.
It's hard.
That's what's hard. It's like you voluntarily listen to like counsel.
You're okay with the act of listening and following the direction.
And like first and foremost, if you're not that with God, how are you gonna be like that with your partner?
That's very true. I think a lot of us, or everybody, even those who are watching, we do need to understand that God created us to be that way. God didn't make a mistake when he said women submit to your husband. He did not say like it wasn't by coincidence that he said that. He made us that way. If you get mad, take it up with God. Don't take it up with us. That's just how it is. Like God made man to be the head, and how they're all saying it's not because the man is trying to control you, or it's not because he wants to have the last say in everything, but men just logically think better than we do. And that's something that I struggle with, honestly, we're still in the beginning, but in the like us being together or being married, it was hard for me to listen without giving my like, no, let's do this, let's do that, no, how about this, how about that? But I had to understand that he's thinking for the both of us. Like if you're in a true Christian relationship, the man should think for you and him.
Yeah,
like,
I saw a video of a woman. She was like, I don't want to listen to no man, but you go to a job working 40 hours for a man, listening and doing whatever he tells you to do. Then you go to a doctor telling you got to do this, gotta do this, and you follow his directions. Then you go to school, whatever, you listen to a teacher that's going to grade you, but you go home to a person that loves you, cares for you, and does everything else for you, and you don't want to listen to him. I was like, dang. But speaking about like feminine and all that, let's take it back to the man side. Edgar, how do you think we can embrace masculinity in our homes and our church community or Christian community? Like, how do you think we can embrace it?
I think masculinity isn't just being tough. It's also about being...
You can cry right now if you want, bro.
It's being vulnerable with your woman, because if you just lead out of strength, how long does that last? You know? So I think
we are your strength, brother. We are your strength.
The Lord is our strength.
Well, yeah, the Lord is your strength, but we are your strength too, man.
I think most and foremost, your relationship with God should be very strong. He should be at the center of your thoughts, the center of your relationship, and it's through him that you learn how to be a better lead, a better husband, and just like having the right knowledge of what it is to be a husband, because through the fear of the Lord is
the beginning of wisdom.
Is the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah. And then Abraham, I mean, we didn't really say it, but what do you think masculinity is? What can you give in your best terms? Yeah.
What is masculinity?
A beard. I'm just kidding. A mustache.
He's like Sunday Night Raw. He's like Monday Night Wrestler.
Chest hairs. Armpit hairs.
I'm growing hair everywhere.
Well, I think we've been focusing a lot like on masculinity when it comes to marriage, when it comes to family.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of talking about masculinity and femininity both take place outside of a relationship as well.
Yeah.
Our masculinity and femininity is to be used to serve God, is to be used to bring glory to God, and that's obviously outside of a relationship as well. But to me, masculinity is not like some tough dude who can beat anybody in a fist fight. Like, that's not masculinity. Masculinity is, and a cool thing, like kind of to sidetrack, a cool thing is that both masculinity and femininity are aspects of God, not in the sense of a gender, but when you go back to Genesis, you see that it says male and female, God created them in his image. So does that mean that God is feminine? No, he's given his attributes to both genders, right? For women, he's given more sensibility. Women who are more sensible, compassionate. But for men, it's someone who is stronger, reliable. They're always there, right? Because you see examples of God being both. We call him Father, but we see in the Gospels that he says he relates to himself to a female hen, right? Who wanted to bring his people into his family, right? So he's given both masculinity and femininity. Femininity are aspects of God, and one doesn't trump the other. They're both equal and they both serve their purpose, right? But masculinity, I don't know. I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? You had a whole essay right now.
You still didn't get to the topic of the point of it.
Masculinity.
What is God ordained Adam in the beginning?
I think masculinity is to have authority, you need to be under authority, right? So God gave man authority over women, but man is under authority of God.
Mm-hmm.
So we're masculine in the sense of what God gives us, we give to the women give to the kids. Masculinity is a leader. Masculinity is spiritual leader, spiritually stable. I think he is the one who, yes, I'm going to put it in there, a breadwinner as well. I believe that the Bible does teach that the man to go out and work for his family.
Come on, baby. You better tell him all the way over there. I'm just kidding.
I believe also is to be like how my brother said it earlier in Ephesians 5. It tells us how a man loves a woman, how God loves his church. And what did Christ do for the church? He died for the church. He did everything for the church. He suffered for the church. He took a beating for the church. He humbled himself for the church. He did a lot. And that's what I think masculinity is: meekness, humbleness, doing everything that Jesus Christ did. And I think that's what it is. But do you guys think it's easier for us, like realistically speaking, to be masculine when a woman is feminine? Or do you think it's just to be masculine is already easy in itself?
Well, I think most times masculinity kind of expresses itself. Like, you don't have to force masculinity. And I think the same thing for femininity. Like, you don't, I mean, unless you have issues with that, I think... No, some women have issues with being feminine, guys have issues with being masculine.
Yeah, there's like tomboys, there's
Tom girls.
No, that's tomboys.
It's tomboy, more boyish.
I think it goes both ways. It's easier for a woman to be a woman, like to be feminine, when her man is masculine. He takes the lead role. He's leading, making decisions that help and benefit both of them. And then the man too. It's easier to lead when a woman is submit.
So then why do you think it's just how corrupt the world is, where guys want to be more feminine?
In Genesis 3, when they both got deceived by the serpent, God told them, and it says in verse 15, I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your heel, and you will strike his heel. So it's already like, that's the curse that God put on us in a way. Because of sin, we're always going to try to go against. Yeah. And so from a man's perspective, when he tries to be too masculine, he won't allow the woman to, in a way, flourish, in a way to
blossom, if you will.
Yeah. Because it's like Christ, first you see the church, you don't see Christ, so if we're supposed to be like Christ, allow your woman to flourish. And I think that takes a lot of humility, in a way where you're like, okay, I'm going to allow my wife to flourish, because what she shows is you're leading, you're teaching, the way that
the mirror of what the guy is showing us.
So just like the church has good fruits, through us submitting through Christ, we'll show that Christ-like character. So
wow, brother, that's a very
speak,
good
brother.
Yeah.
Glory to God. But
I gotta throw that one in there.
Glory to God.
Can't forget about
God. No, but yeah, I think going to your question, it's biblical that we're always gonna be
like that.
Kind of going against.
I think if you read more, I don't want to butcher it again, but there's like a verse where like the woman, because of sin now, will like try to
take the guy's. Yeah, it does say that.
I think it's a little bit earlier, because that verse is referring to the curse given to the snake, but it's a verse that says the woman, your desire will be for your husband, and your husband will rule over you, and that's the role that was given after the fall.
I think it says your desire will be contrary to the husband.
There's a lot of different translations for that. Some people, or even, how would you say, interpretations of that. Some people think that they mean your desire will be for your husband like sexually, or they think your desire will be for your husband as in you want to be higher than your husband.
Like a man.
So there's different, interpretations of what that means. But the end of the verse says, and your husband will rule over you. And what we see is, because the fall was a kind of contrary to the nature of what was supposed to be, right? The woman was deceived first, and she gave the man, right, to eat. And then Adam ate, right? It's not to say that women are...
say, it was the woman you gave me.
Yeah. And even in that, like, he couldn't even take responsibility for his own actions. And when you look at scripture, you see the Bible will always say that sin came through Adam, not through Eve. It did not come through Eve. It came through Adam. And if you see what came through Eve was the promise, right? The Messiah. You see that her curse or the the promise that was made to all of mankind, right, was that the seed would come through the woman, and the snake seed, right, would and that's the verse that he read. The woman's seed would crush the head of the serpent seed, and the serpent seed will bruise his heel, right? That was about Jesus. So that's why it's important to see that role, right? That sin came through man, meaning that it was man's responsibility, that the woman was man's responsibility. And instead of him leading, right, and saying, oh, like, what did you do? We were not supposed to do this. He gave in and he ate of that fruit. And now all of mankind was messed up because he made that decision. And it just shows the corruption even then, because to go ahead and then blame the woman, right, or even blame God, he said, well, this is the woman you gave me. Like, I don't know, like, you gave her to me. Like, he couldn't take responsibility for his actions, which was, you know, that's a part of the sin. And the interesting thing is that the woman also says, well, it was the serpent he's the one who deceived me. And if you realize the serpent was silent, he took that responsibility to kind of laugh in God's face, like, yep, it was me. It wasn't the man, it wasn't the woman, it was me. I was the one who caused the fall of your creation. It was me. And it's crazy to think about, because even terrorists do that, you know, like when something bad happens in the world, all the terrorist groups are like, that was actually me. It was me. It was actually me. I caused that terrorism. It was me. And it wasn't any of them. They're just trying to take responsibility so people can be scared of them, or so that people can be like, wow, they're powerful. But it wasn't them. And it was Adam's fault, you know?
Yeah.
I was thinking about what Melvin said about what can we do for the church, like masculinity. I was having a conversation with my boss. So he's like technically like a youth leader. So he would tell me like, hey, it's mostly like women that like sing. Like he has like no problem with like women singers or anything like that. But it's just that he only sees just the women participating in the church. And like the guys, honestly, we don't really want to sing. We don't want to go up. We don't want to do anything. We'll just show up because for the wives, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But or we just want to stay home, honestly. So it's just what I kind of see right now. Like I feel like for us guys, like we should step up. We should be more involved with the church. We shouldn't wait for it to be like, oh, let it be God's calling and then I'll do it. Like, no, like we shouldn't just let the women just, you know.
Yeah, I think honestly that Moy did bring up a good point, because a lot of women step up in the sense of, you know, worship team, dance team, intercession, fasting, morning prayers, all that. And where are the men stepping up in the morning prayers? Where are the men stepping up and cleaning in the temple? Where's the man stepping up in, you know, in worship team or X teams, whatever it is? I feel like I do see a lot of women step up in those teams.
In those areas. I was gonna say that too, like agree with Moy, because I feel like we've talked about this before, where we always say like, oh yeah, and nowadays like in churches you see the women are spiritual, you know, because the women are always the ones like, you know, like in the front line when it comes to like to it spiritually, like who are praying, who are interceding. Like for example, if we have an altar call, let's say, and then like people come to be prayed over, like you mostly see like the woman coming to pray over these people. I mean, I feel like our church is like a little bit diverse now. But I feel like back then in the Bible, like, you know, you saw all these men leading. You saw, like, you know, Moses, Joshua, all these men leading. And then, like, and I feel like now, like, nowadays it's a little bit of the opposite. Like, you see, like, more of, like, the women who are I don't want to say more spiritual because that kind of sounds, like, bad. But, like, who are actually, like,
acting up in those roles.
Like, acting out, like, the spiritual roles, you know, like, oh, like, okay, like, you know, like, we need more men praying, laying hands.
Yeah, I think a real man is on his knees in the front of the altar. You know, like that's someone God can use.
Yeah. And I don't know if it goes back to the aspect where like, oh, women are more emotional than men. Because that's what I was thinking about too. Like maybe like, you know, us women, us girls, like maybe we step up more because, you know, like
we're more sensitive to
it. We're more sensitive to it in a way, maybe.
I think so. I hear a lot of guys' excuses for that. Like, it's just hard for me to cry. I don't cry, you know, I don't feel. And I kind of think that's bogus, because like it says biblically, God made us in his image. You know, Jesus wept for a reason. He wept because, you know, a family member passed away. There was a lot of things that we can break as men, but we just choose to hold on that manly pride, that manly, I don't want anyone to see me break. And I feel like that's just such a bondage the devil has over you, because whatever you hide in the dark, God cannot expose. you know. So you're keeping that within yourself.
Yeah, and it's crazy because we were talking about that earlier too. How now this generation, men are raised up to not have emotions. They're raised up to be tough. Like you can't cry because you like that's not what men do. Like that's not what guys do.
Especially
Like, they have to toughen
Hispanics.
it up. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like I see that a lot in like other cultures too.
Yeah.
Like I see that a lot where like the men are not like they can't show emotion. Like they can't cry. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why like it could be harder for men to express their spiritual side too, because they grew up like that. They grew up like, okay, we can't cry because if we cry, we show weakness.
Yeah.
But you know, like spiritually, like in the Bible, it says like through your weaknesses, God is made strong. So I feel like, you know, when it comes to it spiritually, like men should not be ashamed to break down and like cry and.
David cried out all the time.
Yeah.
I think our church definitely like is like everywhere, not just my church, but that we all need to like. I think classes. I think someone leading the men, someone leading the women, like because we're young, all of us. We're young, okay, like, and you know, some people have went from being teenagers to just becoming adults, and you're learning a role, but when you do it by yourself, you do it from your thoughts, your interpretation, not some leader who has experience, a leader who knows her roles, who's read the Bible, who's done this, like this big leadership that should be there to teach these young women, to teach these young men.
And that's biblical. There's a verse that says like the elder women teach the younger women and the elder men to teach the younger men.
Exactly, because the thing is, when age, you have experiences, you learn, you grow, you've made mistakes, and you fix them with God. And I feel like nowadays, I think it's lacking teaching, even outside, let's say like in general, as a woman, people don't even know what a woman is. I'm not trying to be like against, you know, anything or anybody, not trying to cause controversy, but we're trying to
No, we are.
Yeah,
we are trying. There's only a man and a woman that God created and nothing else.
I just feel like there's a lack of mother figures, you know. And I just to clarify, I think this whole conversation, some people are gonna be like, oh, well, you guys think women are below, or like, you know, submission is that. But they need to understand in Genesis it says that Jesus made Adam a helper. In the Bible, Jesus was also referred to as a helper.
No,
so
Eve. Eve. You said Adam.
Oh, sorry, Eve. But yeah, like so if we were to say like women were below men, it's like so if Jesus was referred to as a helper as well, are we looking at Jesus below because he's helping? No. He has made us in unity as one, not one above, not one below, but different roles. Yeah. Just to clarify, because I feel like some people are gonna. But back to like the question at hand, I feel like in general there's just a lack of teaching people and kids, adults, whatever it may be, what a woman's role is and what a man's role is.
Yeah, I think we need that in our communities where men to teach us how to be men and women to teach us how to, or teach you guys how to be women, godly men. Because it's very hard. Like if someone's in the world and they're missing that father figure, someone in the world can step up and be that father figure to them, but it's not godly. Exactly. They could be in the wrong path, and same thing for a woman. They want that love from a man and they're missing a father figure, but they go to running somewhere else where they see the first sight of love and receive that. But a little bit, you know, turning point.
A lot of women use the verse where women should stay silent in the churches. What do you guys think about that? Oh, we'll go to Evelyn. I know she has a lot to say.
Well, okay. I know a lot of people use it, and I remember the first time that I read it, I was confused too. We were in a Bible study, and thankfully he was there. And he explained it to us, you know, in the context, like, you know, that was a church where the women, they were out of control, like, you know, like they were mouth speaking, and you know, he wrote them a letter. And I just feel like, you know, when you understand the context behind it, I feel like it could be applied, like, you know, in in the sense where like the same occasion or event it were to reoccur. Well, okay, because then I think about it in the sense kind of like this. I don't know, like not necessarily like it's something like that would be agreed on, but I think of it in the sense of like when Jesus was healing on the Sabbath, a lot of people they were saying like, oh well, you're not supposed to do that because it's the Sabbath, you're not supposed to be working. So then I feel like kind of like in that sense, like, oh well, like should a woman keep silent when there's being injustice, or when like it's an occasion to like speak. Like I feel like you know there's a time and place for everything. I feel like yes, there will always be a time in where maybe I'm supposed to keep silent, but then I also feel like there's also gonna be that moment in which no, like I'm supposed to say something, like like I can't do. There's moments in which you just can't do nothing about a, a situation. Like I feel like there's moments when you need to speak out, like say like my brother's doing wrong, and I'm supposed to say something like, oh, am I gonna tolerate a sin because I'm being told to be
Stay quiet?
But no, like the right thing would be like, hey, like this is what's going on, like and talk to them. But I feel
Speak
like
up.
there's also a way to say things.
Yeah.
Don't just lash out and like speak out.
Because a lot of women like to speak over their husbands, or a lot of women like to speak over authority, and that's what the problem happens. Yeah, I think with men we have the opposite problem. We don't like to speak up, and we hold everything inside until maybe it's that one little thing and we explode, like, or implosive,
Impulse,
impulsive, like, and that's very hard. But us men, we gotta learn too. I don't know if you guys know how to deal with your guys' emotions. At first, it was hard with Nisa. I would keep silent. I wouldn't talk about the problem.
And now he talks all the time. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's why
No,
communication
but
is key for a relationship.
yeah, you want that. Honestly, if you're a girl and your man does not tell you what his problem is,
I just had
I think you need
had a question for the girls. Like, I'm not trying to like be all sensitive or anything, but would you guys use manipulation to get what you want? Well, I'm gonna use an example. Like,
no, be
say
real,
if
man.
because I had this happen a couple of times where I would see my friend, like I would see her go off on him, like, okay, I want to be left alone, like leave me alone, like I'm like we're respectful. We're like, okay, we'll leave you alone. We're gonna go out and we go do it. We're gone for like 30 minutes. We weren't even gone for that long. And she calls him. She's like, oh well, are you guys back, or where'd you guys go? I was like, oh, you told us to leave, so we
like if you're being real at the moment.
Yeah, like we want to like listen to you guys. We want to like do what you said, because obviously when you go off, you want to you don't want to be, you don't want us to comfort you guys. Like you just want your space. So we're like, all right, we're gonna we'll be outside, for like a few minutes. She's asking like, are you guys back already? And
I
then
think that's more different though. I think that's more in a girl's emotion. Like, at least me personally, I don't think I've ever said like leave me alone. But most girls would want you to be there for them. Like they don't really mean leave me alone. They mean come and comfort me, please. That's what most girls.
Yeah.
Space to breathe. Like give me a
Give me a second to just compose myself. I feel like that question and stuff like that is the new gen relationship, because when you're outside of Christ, all you know is I'm gonna be with this person because what they can do for me, how they make me feel, how they're gonna benefit me, how they're gonna take care of me. That's a selfish relationship, and that's the world relationship outside of God. Because when you come to Christ and you learn of Him, you learn that you're supporting this person, you're putting this person first. You're not selfish, you're selfless. God teaches us to be selfless. And in a relationship outside of Christ, it's this person needs to fulfill my needs, or I'm gonna go off. And you don't go, God fulfills my needs. How can I support this person? My boyfriend's going through, or my spouse is going through something. Let me pray for them. Let me, maybe like they're super stressed out. Maybe something made me upset. I'll be honest, sometimes I get upset because of something my partner did. But I know he's going through so much right now. And because God has taught me, he's going through a lot. Be selfless. Put your needs, like put him above your own needs first. Support him, aid him. Yeah. And And I think that's why a lot of relationships now are just. I think that's why now femininity and like masculine and feminine roles are switched now because of the selfish desire that you have in yourself. You want to prioritize you. You want to be above it all. Men want a woman who will work and cook and clean and do this. Like they do 50-50, but the woman does 75% of the work. Women want a man who will do 100% of the work and they don't have to do nothing. They don't want to fulfill the role. They don't want to support. They don't want to. It goes both ways with both genders, right? But yeah, just mainly like I think when you're in the world and you don't know God and you don't learn that He teaches you to be selfless, then when you enter a relationship, it's all about you. And what happens when that person stops making you feel that way? Like let's say the butterflies, right? Because when you get in a relationship, I mean, if love is beautiful and at first you're like, oh my gosh, you're like so engulfed in the emotions. What happens when times get so tough that things are trying to break you apart and now both of you are under stress, under like this boulder, and now guess what? The butterflies are not there to lift it up. Who's gonna be there to lift it up? God.
Mosquitoes.
And together.
Mosquitoes. Yeah, because at that point it was lust that hold you guys together. It wasn't love, but now love, like how you said, it's selfless. It's you would put not. I don't want to say put first because a lot of relationships nowadays they put that first. My relationship first, him first, she first. But like yeah, what you're saying, be selfless, deny yourself. You know. But what were you gonna say?
Well, I think going back to knowing Christ and submitting to Him before a relationship is important because, like, let's say you do get in a relationship, you don't know what is in your heart from like past traumas or, you don't know what's in your heart. So if you're not asking God to examine your heart, prior to that, the butterflies, like you said, are gonna go away, and then you're left with what you knew back then, in a way.
When you bring that baggage to a relationship, that person is not gonna fix it because they're not God. They're not gonna heal you from that trauma. They're not gonna. They can support you and be that love and that comfort. But if you don't have God, they're healing that trauma. Then guess what? Like those violent tendencies of those emotions that build up, and you don't know how to deal with it because you haven't been. So you're gonna bring it to your partner, and what is that gonna do to the partner? Push you away.
You're being selfish because you're not healed from what you've already experienced because you haven't met God. And how can you love someone if God is love? Then and if you don't know God, then what is love? And I think that's something important that people are not learning. And at the end of the day, I think the love that we see now is selfish. What can they do for me? Not how can I support them? How can I love them? How can I push them to be like supporting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is all very good, you guys. We all did very amazing.
Good job, guys.
With your answers, they were all really good. But but I did want to leave one more. What do you guys take out from this, from hearing what our perspectives are from the Bible of masculinity and femininity? What do you take from that? Like, what can you share to the audience, people watching on the other side of the screen? What did you learn from masculinity, femininity, the roles together biblically? What do you take from it?
What do I take from that? Well, out of everything that's been said, I think I just really like, how the guys like kind of like, examined it in a sense because, and not only like the masculinity but the femininity because, like I mean, us as women, I guess we have our own perspective of like, what we think like we're supposed to be and what you guys are supposed to be. But like, I feel like in hearing, like a man like say like, oh, well, like this is what like we see and this is what like, I feel like it kind of like gives you room to like just see like, okay, like how do you harmonize that? Like how do you like, be how do you fit your role, like, just basically like, am I fitting my role? Like, how do you fit your role and am I fitting my role? So more so just like, to examine myself. Like, I mean, for example, me, like I'm not in a relationship and I feel like that gives me room to like examine myself, like, well, before I do, God willing, like, if God gives me,
Oh, God willing. Yes, Evelyn. Yes.
if si sea en la voluntad de Dios, that, like, I wanna, and obviously I'm not perfect, I'm human, I have flaws and I make mistakes, but like, in this, like, I guess season of waiting, I guess you can say, how do I prepare myself, and how do, like, how do I see God, like, as, my provider, as my husband, like, before I go myself trying to find one myself,
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Very good.
What did you learn to leave off with the audience?
I learned, this is a really good conversation, of male perspective, because I love looking at different perspectives. I don't like looking at only what I think is true and that's it. No, like, I love opening up. I like how you guys said, like, you guys were talking about, like, the emotional, like, you guys think intellectually, you guys think more with your head, but that doesn't mean you leave out your heart. I think it's a beautiful thing. I learned even from the feminine side, like, that it's not bad to be submissive. It's not terrible to be the role that God has left us. I think it's a beautiful blessing to be a woman, for men to be men, because God has designed us perfectly and He loves us so much. And I think I learned that being submissive isn't a bad thing. It's a beautiful role of supporting someone that you truly love.
What about you, Raquel?
She said, I don't know.
I don't know. What we're talking about?
What she said.
What would you tell them that you learned? I don't know. We're talking about men, women. I don't know. Something.
What is that? Just kidding.
Actually, yeah, one thing that I like that we talked about a lot is how, the man and the woman complement each other. Like, we're not made to be above each other. Well, obviously, like, the guy is the leader, but we're, like, made to not compete against that, like, not compete against, like, okay, like, I'm going to be the first, I'm going to be the top, I'm going to be the best. No, like, we're made to complement each other. We're made to not only that, but, like, be submissive to God. Because, like, how we've been talking about that, that's in our nature, like, well, one thing that I like a lot is, like, in everything, like, that for from you all are things, and to you all are things, because God deserves all the glory, so, like, how we mentioned, like, us being submissive to God is glory to God, like, it's to glorify Him, it's to honor Him. So that's what I got from this topic, like, at the end of the day, God made us to glorify Him and be submissive to Him first and foremost, before we're submissive to anybody on this earth.
Amen. What about you, babe?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, what did I learn from this? Honestly, I did like that we all came to an agreement of what our roles should be. I think in this world, it's kind of sad to see that women and men don't know what the role is. I think for me, myself, I've always tried my best to be in my feminine role, but feminine doesn't always mean biblical femininity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I struggled with that a lot. I think I obviously still have my flaws, but hearing, I guess, from both men and women's side that we are here to help each other, how everybody's saying we complement each other, we're here to serve one another. I think I'm learning that. Obviously, everybody knows I'm married, so it's hard to sometimes see my husband's side as not him trying to one up me, but he's winning for the both of us, like he's making those decisions for the both of us, not just for his own sake. But yeah, I really like the part where we're coming to the concise of, yeah, we're here to help one another, not be one up of each other.
All right, Abraham, what would you share to the audience what you learned?
We didn't really hear much from you, Melvin. I wanted to see if I know you were asking the questions here, but I did want to hear your perspective.
Go ahead, take it away. This is your podcast now. Take it away. So what were we saying? What were we asking?
Like, what did you learn? Like, did we talk about,
I would like to say what I learned to share to you guys is that masculinity doesn't mean, well, Abraham said masculinity doesn't mean being tough or being like, I could chest hair and beat up somebody, whatever. Masculinity, and I see it, is the way that God puts it biblically. Someone who's able to go on his knees, cry out to the Lord, and ask for help and guidance, and be meek and humble, saying, God lead me so I can lead my wife, my kids, or God lead me so I can lead others that are under me. So I think that's what I took. Like, I don't have to be strong and tough all the time. I can be weak in God because He will give me strength in my weakness.
All right, Abraham's your turn.
Not necessarily something I learned, but something that I appreciated was the emphasis of how just because men and women serve differently, they have different roles doesn't necessarily mean that they're one is above the other when it comes to importance, or when it comes to I'd say importance. We're both equal, right? And we're both one, and we're both trying to serve God, and we serve God in different ways, but we're at the end of the day, it's all glory to God.
Amen.
I think oftentimes that, like we were talking about, the struggle is pride in itself, you know, when we try to glorify ourselves, right? When we try to, and I think that's where the issue happens, is when, you know, guys are prideful and they say, no, you have to submit to me because I'm over you and what I say goes. Well, you got to submit to God, and God doesn't tell us to be like that. He tells us to be, like Melvin was saying, meek and humble. And the Bible literally does say that we should hold others higher than ourselves. We should think of others higher than ourselves. So if you actually think about what that means to literally submit to one another, and to seek others' benefits before our own. And that is the same for masculinity and femininity, even in relationships, where we have to seek the benefits of others before we even seek ours, because that's what Christ did. You know, he submitted himself to the will of the Father. It was not, he cried out because he knew that it would be a difficult thing to carry the sins of the entire world. And he asked God, you know, if it's your will, let this cup pass from me. But it wasn't God's will, right? Because his will was to make a way for all of us to be saved. And that's one thing that I like about God. He doesn't tell us to do something that he isn't willing or hasn't already done. He has called us to submit. He has called us to be humble, because that's what Jesus did when he was here on earth. He was humble. He was submissive. When you read the book of John, that's literally the topic of John, that God submits to the Father, Jesus submits to the Father, and everything that the Father does, or that Jesus does, was through the Father. So I think at the end of the day, whatever way that, you know, we serve when it comes to masculinity and femininity, it's all in submission to God, and all to glorify his name and to exalt his name.
Amen. How about you, Edgar? What would you share to the others on the other side of the screen?
Well, I kind of already knew some of these things, but it was just a reminder, you know, to self-evaluate. Where am I in my walk with Christ? Because I could be thinking that I'm ready for a relationship, but I don't know what's in my heart still to, you know, work on, to submit. And I think seeing other people's perspectives helped, because you could get like a lot of stuff from YouTube and stuff, but having, you know, physically, you know, someone telling you how they view stuff, how you know, how they feel, I think it's important.
Okay. What about you, Moy?
Like what I learned, just mostly, I mean, we already talked about it. You know, I have learned this a lot, but I still have a lot of trouble with vulnerability, because, you know, again, we weren't raised to to be hard. We weren't shown to be like, oh, be emotional, and like I still have trouble. Like every time I talk to my friends, to like I don't like to like cry. If I cry, it's rare. I'm like, oh, like you don't see that. All right, but you know, it's just show emotion, be vulnerable, you know, and yeah, that's about it.
We got you, brother. We got you.
We got it. We got it.
Until next time, guys, make sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe. God bless you guys.
Bye.
Bible someone will ever read.
Let's make heaven crowded.
Catching all souls.
You got to prove your love.